Right, so you start with potential. Remember that very first group we had, we started talking about the root of consciousness, right? That basic element, which was
Wait, say it again.
the basic element to your consciousness from a human functioning performance perspective.
Awareness.
No, he said awareness.
That's a portion,
Okay.
but the awareness, in order to have that awareness, you need this, right? What is that?
Shoot,
A brain.
Okay,
Your
well,
conscience.
for this element, you don't actually need the brain because it exists without the brain.
Oh, energy.
But the brain is built off of these, and I'm not going to say the following word scenarios.
Atom.
What is allowing you even right now to think? What are you thinking about? What are you using in your mind?
Energy.
You're using energy, but what are you actually using even to say the word energy?
Energy.
Thought.
What allows you to track your thoughts?
Your decisions.
What allows you to express your thoughts?
Your decision to express your thoughts.
What allows you to get to a decision?
Okay, come on, dog.
Huh?
He's making us think. It's good.
I
We almost there. We almost
Because
there.
everything is going to extend from it. Right? You're using words right now, right? What is that?
Sound.
Sound.
Come on, man. Yeah, he taught us this.
Those waves,
He taught us this.
exactly.
Yeah, come on.
At the very, as you're sitting here pondering
Vibration.
and thinking in your consciousness where your awareness is, in order for me to get some awareness, I have to utilize words. Have to utilize the sound, right? And so, as we mentioned before, without even having to get into the science of it, but just so we recognize what they're referring to a Big Bang, or when things took place, there was sound waves, right? And so there's waves of light, waves of heat, you understand? Radio waves, there's a lot of different types of waves. But in order to manage yourself, your functioning, how you use your awareness, how you engage your consciousness, right? Because we're all plugged inside of what? What are we all plugged inside of?
The Matrix.
Okay, you watch a lot of TV. Right, what do you mean by Matrix?
So what I mean by you said, what are we plugged into the Matrix?
Yeah, what are we? Everything. What is plugged into?
We're spiritual beings, but we're living in the Matrix, so we have to follow the rules of the Matrix. Like, I might be spiritual and be like, oh, I want to manifest this and that, but I'm still living here with everybody else. So I gotta follow the rules.
So you don't like the rest of us. You just here with the rest of us.
Damn.
We're all the same. We just have different.
Right, but now when you look at that matrix, though, all of that you're referring to is still tapped into something else. What is that tapped into?
Source.
The source.
Okay, like you used the example of the lamp.
Right.
Plug and.
Hey, don't take my credit.
Well, I'm just saying. Well, you ain't saying that.
Yeah, bitch.
Right. So to that same point, we're all plugged into the source, right? That's where it all starts. And so your consciousness is what allows you your portion of the source of existence, right? Because unless you think that you're a separate entity from the source of existence, do you consider yourself a separate entity?
No.
You, right? Because we discussed that. In order for there to be separate, now it becomes no longer unity, it becomes one. And one is what?
Individualism.
A portion of two. And two is a what? A portion of three.
Yeah.
So now you go from the one reality, the source of it all, to a bunch of divisions, and then we're thinking that we actually have the power versus us being plugged into the power. That's your legacy. Remember, before we discussed that your history is what takes place inside of your DNA, inside of the way that you use yourself. But your legacy is dealing with a present. The only thing that stays in now is the source of it all. And that's what you plugged into. So your potential is the fact that you have access to the source of it all. That's your potential. And then as you guys started to discuss talking about kinetic, that's when you start to put movement. And that's what made me go back into the sound. That was when movement was clicked on. Vibration clicked on. everything in existence vibrates. It's that speed that it vibrates, as you mentioned about spirituality and being a spiritual being. That's a certain level of vibration, right? But the lower that vibration gets, the more physical the form of energy that you're experiencing. So you have to become bound by the laws that's associated with each of those vibrational tones. Your mind is based on different laws of existence. Your physicalness is based off of different laws. And your physicalness takes you into the source of existence, the source of experience, and the source of endurance. Those are the three main elements in everything that you're going to go through, right? But there's laws for each of those. And there's a stance that has to be taken inside of yourself, right? And so all of that, from the sound, how you're linked into your consciousness, how you use your mind, is going to take you from your potential, which is access to the source of the boundless universes. But learning how to navigate and how to tune in to those signals that constantly come into us. So when you mention the brain is like a radio. It allows those waves that are constantly moving to come into you. That's what links you with everything else into your physical being. So that's when you tune into a radio to a certain wavelength, you pick up certain channels, right? And so as you start to raise your awareness, you start to raise your consciousness, you start to change the way that you use yourself. You also are able to start accessing different tones, different vibrations. So as an original people, one of the things we did was chant. But we used to chant in our tone, because that's where you start getting vibrations inside of yourself. People heard of chakras, but in other older languages, they use different terms, different words. But it's all going down to how you activate, utilize, disseminate those vibrations, the way you move, right? And so that's going to bring us into what we're going to get into today, right? Being human, being a supreme being existence, one inside of existence, dealing with your functioning, dealing with what you have access to, what you grow into. And at the same time, it's going to be based off of how you engage yourself. So we're going to go through a quick scenario, and don't respond till we get to the end of it, because I actually want you to allow it to sit in your mind, right? So imagine for a moment, right, that you can get whatever you want right now. You can get whatever it is that you want right now. Imagine that. Then imagine that any experience that you want to have, you're able to get it. Any experience that you want to have, you are able to get it. Now, imagine what you have to do in order to make that happen. So now, in your mind's eye, what is it that you want? What do you want?
I want to be the highest, supreme, conscious version of myself.
Okay. And what do you have as a reflection for that?
I have the people that are reflecting back to me. So like even yourself, even the people who are here today, royalty. It's like that saying goes, like iron sharpening iron. So the best aspects of you all I have to contrast towards myself. Okay, I want to be more graceful. I want to be more fortified. I want to be more outspoken. I want to be more conscious or thoughtful. All those shape up and add towards my experience in order to help direct and guide me towards my greatest good.
Okay. Anyone else? What do you want? What do you want? and we're directing down a path. So what do you want?
Can you ask a question?
What do you want?
And what?
See, there you go. We talked about that when we talked about what are you doing, right? If you need me to fill in the blank for a question that's being opened to you,
So
you're looking for direction from someone else. So if that's all you receive, what should you respond from? Right? As a deity of your being, I just ask you, what do you want? Right? So you need me to direct you.
I was just asking what.
I know. No, we do. I know. But remember we talked about this when what are you doing? That it was left that way for that your brain can do what? Your mind can do what?
Oh, thank
Yes. Right?
you. Right.
So what do you want?
Peace in myself.
Peace in yourself. Okay.
Fireball.
Okay. How about you? What do you want?
So what I want is to learn how to get everything that I want
Okay.
and keep it.
For sure. Okay. Goddess. What you want?
I want to be able to be impactful to the people that I come in contact with positively.
Okay.
Can I add to?
With all day.
You want to finish yours up?
That's it.
Okay. But like what I want to like learn how to have my own business and attract enough money, whether it's my own business or if I'm working for someone else or both. I want to learn how to have enough money and keep it and make it grow and just have stability for myself and everything like that.
Okay. So with that being said, now what's at the root? What's at the essence of wanting? What's at the root of wanting? Say that again.
Oh, I said room.
Growth?
You said the room. That's
Yeah, what's at the root of want? To want.
Having a desire
Having a desire.
that needs to be fulfilled.
Okay.
Declare.
What you declare? Okay.
It's just something you want. The root of what you want.
Yeah, what is that? What is at the root of that? For me to answer the question, what do I want? What is that word want? What is at the root of that want?
self-understanding of what you want.
Okay. Some understanding of what you want. Okay. Some understanding of what's going on inside of you. Okay.
It just depends on what you want. Cause you could want like something you shouldn't have, like hot Cheetos or something. And it's like, oh, I really want this. And it's like, you shouldn't be eating that. But you want it. So what's at the root of that? Something that you need to hopefully try to let go of. But then you could also want, like I said, stability and whatever.
Okay.
And then something else is at the root of that. So I don't think
Okay. We're gonna get there.
they could.
Anything anybody want to add to?
I don't know. I think want really wouldn't be my biggest actually.
No. Let's remember we talked about context and condition.
Yeah.
Stay on context
Yeah.
and rule your condition, right? You started to leave the context. That's usually when we start to avoid,
Yeah.
right? Because something else is better over here. That's something over there that I can deal with, right? But we got to rule where we are. We got to handle what's in front of us. That becomes part of our issues, right? Getting through it, and we're going to get to how that comes into play right now, right?
I'd say that worthiness would be at the root of wanting.
Okay.
So dependent on what I want is going to be in contrast with what I feel worthy of. So say if, like, okay, if I've been working out, right, I've been doing my due diligence and I've done everything that I've needed to, and I really care about my health, but for some reason I have this high craving for, I really want these hot Cheetos.
Right.
I really want these hot Cheetos. And I've been doing everything right, and it's not gonna hurt me. And if I do that for myself, I'm gonna do even better. So I have the hot Cheetos. Now, as long as that doesn't make me feel worth less, then I'll be okay. And then that's in my right and in my value to do more. But say if I'm obese and I don't work out, and I've been trying to work out and I've been trying to get to the gym and I won't go, and I keep saying I'm gonna go next week, and then I skip the day where I was supposed to go, and I look at that bag of hot Cheetos. If I eat them hot Cheetos, I'm gonna feel worthless, and this may not be in my space of, worthiness in order to even have those Cheetos.
Okay.
But then when the discipline comes in there, though, right?
Yeah, that's all
Right.
right.
But we're going to get to how all of these come into play. Because right now, we're talking around want. Remember, we also talked about well. At the root,
Wish.
the etymology of well is what?
Wish.
A wish. At the root of want is a lack. It's something that you don't have. You understand? So if I want peace, I'm probably experiencing quite a bit of something in opposition to it. If I want to get to a business, I might not be necessarily where I want to be in terms of this job thing. You understand? And so as we start to really get into what it is that's necessary, now it goes right back. As you know, I'm going to bring it right back. What do you want? And in order for me to be well, I have to think about what my wishes are. That's tying into what I lack. That's tying into, now I start to think about discipline, but what I'm going to be disciplined to. What am I being disciplined for? And then the brother Sovereign, in that scenario you mentioned about worthiness, right? You also took for granted that that person that's obese cared about what was going to happen with eating those hot Cheetos.
That's true.
So worthiness never would have even come into play. He might have saw his worthiness is by being able to get what he wants.
The wish.
When he wants.
I want those Cheetos.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have them.
And being in a state of well functioning might not be his want. You see, his lack might be he needs more money to get more stuff, or he wants to be able to, you understand?
Yeah.
So you have to get back at, inside of your personal journey, you have to understand what it is you're going after, or how is it that you're going to be able to actually make it happen. How are you going to go from the potential of having thought, the potential to create, the potential to author what it is that you want? How do you go from that potential to authored, created, advocated for your well-being, your spiritual daily success, for whatever that may be for you? So it goes right back to start when I'm asking, what do you want? You got to realize, like, what is it that I'm in lack of? And then you have to think about, what is it that you mentioned, declare. What am I declaring about my life? What is it that I want to make known based off of the way I use myself, the way that I engage people, the way that I interact with others, the way that I direct myself? What is it that I'm attempting to make known? When I wake up, when you're cooking and things of that nature, from interacting with you, that taps into that nurturer part of you. You're sitting there making full-on meals that you're going to be the last one to eat. You understand? But you're making sure with your sister and everything else. So you start to, we talked about this before, even if people have abused you, people didn't give you what you needed, that shouldn't change how you engage that deity within, that divinity. As we talk about that divinity, how you're defining yourself and that natural inclination, you have to nurture it. But those boundaries become who I allow to touch that divine inside of me. So when we start to look at, what do you want? You got to think about, what is it that you're attempting to perform for your well-being, for your purpose, right? You got to think about that. You got to think about, what is it that I'm executing each day toward my purpose, toward what I want my life to look like. And I got to look at where the lack is in that. What is it that I want to accomplish? What is it that I want to fulfill? And then I got to look at where my lack is to to getting to that point, living inside of purpose fulfillment. Then we got to look at what is it that I'm putting forth? What am I allowing to radiate from my being that's going to be in support of the person that I want to be, purpose fulfillment? And where's the lack in that? So that question, what do you want, is very profound when it's about raising your functioning. Right? Wanting to get into that entrepreneurship, these are the tools that lack into getting it, and the key part in that is maintaining momentum. Right? Being able to keep it, making it a part of your daily living. So once it becomes a part of you, once it becomes the way that you express, once it becomes the way that you radiate, once it becomes the way that you perform, once it becomes the way that you execute your daily living, then you're able to make it happen. But then that just brings us right back into the next question. What determines what you need? Start talking about lack, it's going to bring us right into need. What determines what you need?
Yourself.
How so?
I mean, you know your body. I mean,
Okay.
you know what you need. I mean, you know, sometimes you do what you, or get what you don't need, you know, but it's yourself.
Right?
Because it can't be nobody else. Ain't nobody that can be what I need.
Okay. That was a good throw of your ego out there. Because I'm sure people can tell you what you need. Like if I was to ask you at the very root level, what nutrition does your heart need? What nutrition does your liver need? What nutrition does your lungs need? Can you answer any of? Yeah, you understand?
Yeah, I get your point.
So somebody can tell you.
Well, yeah, but shit, it's still.
Right.
We're not talking about, you know, the functions of my body right
Why
now.
not?
We're talking about mentally.
Can you do what you do without it?
Heck no.
Right? So now, this was a perfect example of how our ego, when we feel a threat.
I hate being a butt of a joke.
I know, right? It's not a joke. It's learning. It's growth. But what happens is all of us are there. When each person has their own threat. So once you identify a threat, you respond to the threat. You don't respond to the context. And then you don't rule your condition based upon what's going to maintain that momentum and fulfillment of my purpose. I no longer worry about my purpose. I worry about answering that threat through my ego and how I've learned to address it. Right? So I might ignite anger. I might ignite a bullying method. I might ignite a way to keep you from pursuing whatever it is that we're discussing. And sometimes it might just be a blow up with anger so you can storm out of the room so that you don't have to deal with it. You understand? But in order to get what we want, see, that's part of that lack. I lack the ability to address those threats. Right? And so we have to look at what determines my needs. And it's going to fall in line with this as well. What determines my needs?
The state of being.
Your state of being. How so?
Depending on where you are would determine what you need to get where you want to be.
Exactly. Right? So if I'm in the beginning stages, what's going to determine your need has to go back to we talk about declaring, right? It's going to be your destination. Remember we went through examples of that. You have to set your destination. Then you have to have fulfillment. Fulfillment, what's at the root of fulfillment? What is fulfillment even about? People are always talking about fulfilling stuff, but what is fulfillment actually about? Shouldn't hear silence. Everybody want to fulfill something. And then, right?
Get my words together.
Fulfilling that lack, that desire. So you feel the desire is based on a lack. So when you fulfill whatever lack that is, that becomes fulfillment.
Okay. So what is fulfillment about then?
I wish.
Feeling lack.
No, go ahead. You got it.
Fulfilling a lack. Okay. That gets there a little bit.
Fulfillment is about having peace.
Okay, that's talking about what's going to be fulfilled and your experience.
I wish.
I feel like it's
It will start you on the path of trying to fulfill something.
What about levels?
What about levels?
Like to get to the fulfillment part. you have
Like a
to-
Tootsie Roll? Remember those little commercials? How many licks to get to the
Yeah.
right?
The world may never know.
However, but that's still talking around
Hell yeah.
fulfillment.
Dang, Siri. Where you at?
Right? And it's also where most people have a lack in their
Emotion?
relationships, in
Were you
themselves.
gonna say emotion?
Mm-mm.
Oh.
But it manages your emotion.
It's okay.
I want
Right.
to say confidence.
Okay, so you need confidence to do the work to fulfill something.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is that wherever you place your confidence is where you're going to get your results.
Exactly.
But that's still going around.
Discipline.
I have an answer.
So,
You're
all the
not
good
gonna like
answers.
my answer though.
All the
Why not?
The answer that I have.
I want to talk about why I won't like it.
Yeah, what was your first?
Well, you may like
Okay.
it, but I
Let's
don't
see.
think you will.
Okay.
But so the answer I have is that none of us are gonna tell you the right answer.
Okay. Okay, so here's the deal. You realize that in order to fulfill something, it begins with a vow. If you don't make a promise, you can't get to fulfillment.
That's crazy. I was thinking that, but I thought I was wrong, so that's why I ain't even say nothing.
Right.
A promise.
Fulfillment begins with a vow. Even if you come into the shop and you walk in and you come up there and you eating on something already, you actually have an oral contract, a physical contract to pay for that. You understand?
Yeah.
You made that promise the moment you opened it up. And in order to fulfill something, I must take a vow. And at the root and the essence of loyalty is a vow to a promise that you will be unwavering in. Right? So we use the word be fulfilled and fulfillment, but we don't use it in the proper sense. So we have a ton of poor relationships. Right? Talking about I'm gonna fulfill your needs, but I don't even know what I'm saying. Right?
I don't get the intuitive connection to that.
How so?
I
Connected
don't
to
get
what?
it.
Connected to what?
The fulfillment and
Okay, here's the deal. If
and
I
the
tell
vow.
you I'm going to cut your grass, that's my promise. When I finish cutting the grass, I'm in a state of fulfillment to what I promised.
Okay, so if I'm saying to myself,
Yes.
you know, I don't understand the fulfillment and the vow. If I'm just
Okay.
speaking about what I'm interacting with myself.
Okay, you know what your vow is with yourself? When we discussed it, when you make that declaration, when you set a purpose, you just made a vow to how you're going to use yourself.
Like self-love.
Right? So if I say that my mission is this, I just made a vow. And as I'm doing it, I am fulfilling it. And the moment that I complete a particular role, I'm in fulfillment. And then it gets into the next level. When I do it on a consistent basis, that fulfillment becomes just say whatever's in your mind. I'm gonna go with that.
Fulfilled.
You accomplished it.
My fulfillment on a consistent basis
I
becomes
said routine.
Yeah.
okay. It becomes
Discipline.
personal tradition, becomes routine,
Mhm.
but
Right.
becomes
Discipline.
your discipline was inside of you doing consistent work for the fulfillment
Right.
to that vow,
Mm.
right?
Practice.
Natural.
Routine.
How so?
Becomes automatic.
Right, right.
It becomes a habit. That's just how you are and what you do.
Right? It's going to become your tradition, right?
Yeah.
But that next piece, that's going to become satisfaction. But the word is content.
Yeah, fulfilled, content.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
You want to be the content, but so many people, because of pleasure, we talked about the Cheetos, those are pleasure principles that keeps us spiking because we don't have a handle on our lack, or it doesn't matter to us, right? But that fulfillment goes back to this vow. Whenever I say I'm going to do something, so a lot of people, they'll come to me like, well, I ain't gonna tell you what I'm gonna do because I fear that I don't make it happen. Fear of failure and all these other things come into play. So I'm going to try to keep this silent so that it's in my mind, and the minute that it doesn't work out, I can fool myself into everything else was the issue. Other people got it easier, other people got more support, people got this, I'm going to allow that to happen in my mind. But a ruler of self, that divinity within you makes declarations. This is what I'm going to do. You understand? Because that's what I'm going to stand behind. And I accept that I might have challenges and obstacles along that path. But I'm going to be consistent to fulfill that vow that I made. Right? And so, what is it that determines your needs?
Where are you trying to go?
I think like
Thank you.
Royalty said earlier, knowing where you want to go and where you are right now, what it's going to take for you to get from where you are now to where you want to be.
Yeah, and that's what was mentioned in terms of that state of being, because you're going to go through levels of where you are, because you can only start where you are. And you'll hear people say, I want to meet you where you are. That's not my process. I meet you where you want to go. So we have to identify what your destination is. So this whole process is about setting a destination, doing the work along the journey to get where you're going. Does that make sense? And then you're going to get the experience from making that fulfillment along that path. And that experience subtly went into the emotions part. And that's where the contentment is, that I'm okay. I'm not swinging from super highs, super lows. And that's where people start feeling stuck. They start feeling meaninglessness is in between those ticks and tocks of your personal clock. Right? But you want it to be here still. Like that in your consciousness. Now, the root outside of human functioning is blackness, stillness, that triple darkness. And the sound came out of that triple darkness. You understand? And so it's looking at your human functioning. Now that lack of movement is the origin of your potential.
What?
Still potential, no movement, stuck. But now that kinetic is when the lights clicked on. And whenever light clicks on, you always has a source. You can go to where the light came on at. I don't care what is going on. Light is not the root of your intellect. It's that darkness. The light has an on and off. You can go find the light because it has a source that you can tap into. But you can't find the beginning or the end of you.
That's beautiful.
You understand?
That's beautiful.
So when we're determining our needs, how do I want to use myself? I got to set my destination. I have to make that declaration on what my life is going to be about. The person that I want to be. But I can't start, we talked about this before, I can't start looking at that person that I want to be through the eyes of fear. What if I can't get it? So I'm going to make an easy goal, right? So that I can accomplish this. But then I'm still not getting to fulfillment. Because my actual vow was to be my best self. And then I got this other little voice inside of me. Well, what if I go here, I can. So you're not fulfilling that vow. You're over here doing some things, but it's not in the stage of fulfillment. It's in the stage of just doing work. You're doing work here. You can't use that word fulfillment. Does that make sense?
Which means also you're not going to have contentment.
Exactly. You're going to have, your emotions are going to be constantly going, because we're not going to be managing that power inside of us, our imagination. Right? You got to manage your imagination. Once you start to declare the life that you're going to live, then you have to manage your conscience, your personal right or wrong. You're going to have to manage that. But then we've learned to rehearse stories, right? To get the lie to ourselves. But that witnessing you, that part of you that has nothing to offer, it doesn't move, it doesn't act, but it sends that signal, that observer, that's not what you want. So imagine that if you truly said, I'm going to do something, and then there's another voice in you that can say the opposite of that, then there's more than one aspect of you. And so in order for me to determine my needs, I need to know what it is I plan to fulfill. I need to look within that potential and recognize what my potency needs to look like. My destination, that person. Going back to that center being. Start with looking at my personal values, right? My self-direction. How I actually look at pleasure, and how pleasure winds up becoming a priority. Pleasure will have you go against, instead of just being one of your natural values, it becomes a priority that you will work in opposition to what you made a vow to, what you pledged loyalty to, what your purpose fulfillment is. And then those daily principles, that center being, you got to tap into those principles that allows you to get the work done on a daily basis for your daily success.
Can you give us an example, a
Of
day-to-day example of how we allow pleasure to distract us from where we want to go?
Easy. Let's talk about the Cheetos, right? Or both of them gave a scenario in terms of, wanting to eat that, recognizing that that's not something that they should have, but they're lacking pleasure at that moment. And this is a pleasure principle that we taught ourselves. It became a habit. It's part of your subconscious. So that even for me to have the idea of a Cheeto is my personal work. Because if I take you to Sudan and I take you into a village, and let's say they've never been exposed to those scenarios, they would never, ever conceive of hot Cheetos. Right? So this is based off of that unconditional love that we're a part of, that allows us to make the choices. And whatever we teach our brain is important to us is what it's going to give you. So as Brother Royalty talked about that state of being, identifying your needs, yes, because you're going to have to go back to building that routine so that it's in your subconscious, so that the thoughts that's being sent to your mind are in alignment with your destination.
So what thought, as an example,
Yeah.
what thought would be the proper response to that need for pleasure, other than the hot Cheetos?
Okay.
What would you say?
Several scenarios. So the hot Cheetos has no bearing whatsoever in a solution, right? You don't go to the problem and look for the solution, right? It is a root that comes from, right? So what happens is you have to go back to, how am I activating pleasure, hedonism in my life? Because that's the problem. So once you've already been exposed to the pleasure palace, means you've had sex, you've engaged in eating all kind of foods because of the way they taste, those are forms of pleasure. The moment you've entered into it, you can no longer get the same treatment and learning that a person who hasn't been there before. So now you have to look at what was that fulfilling, and I have to look at what would be healthy for the level of functioning that I want to have. So now I have to disseminate, again, I have to reverse the force of energy of how I've been using pleasure. So I have to identify, what does healing pleasure look like? And now I have to start building daily, which is the first daily principle, is kindness. At the root of kindness is responsiveness. So I have to learn how to respond to my goals, have to respond to my relationships. I have to respond to my values. So now, once I recognize what the healing version of pleasure for me is going to look like, now that I've already been exposed to all these other things, what does the healing pleasure value look like? And then I have to start activating it through how I monitor my daily self so that I have daily success or a progressive realization of my most worthy ideas and ideals on a daily basis. And so kindness is that first principle. I have to make sure that I activate how I'm being responsive to what I vowed.
So it's like reprogramming our mind so that when we normally would turn to something from the pleasure palace,
Yep.
we would turn to another source. And where would that source be?
So you don't want to just turn away, because that's just me avoiding it in a moment. So the next moment come up, I'm right back at it. Once again, I have to go back to the root. So let's say, for instance, I have a problem with porn, right? So now what I need to do is recognize what I am doing when I'm looking at this. So now I have to start looking at, is this something that in terms of my relationship that I'm having a lack in? Is there something in me I'm having a lack? Is there something in me that I feel that I can't get fulfilled from another person? So that starts to go into communication. So now the first thing I have to go through is that communication piece. So if I made the declaration of the person that I want to be, and this doesn't involve that because that might work against my purpose fulfillment. So now I start there from that communication. And then I start recognizing that, okay, once the trigger comes up for me to go and watch porn, there's going to be another behavior that's going to take place that's part of my daily routine. It's not going to be a one-off. Does that make sense? So I have to engage. So it might wind up being something as simple as, whenever I start getting the trigger for porn, I'm going to go and sit down and talk to my spouse. But beforehand, I'm going to let my spouse know that I'm working through this. Remember, we talked about boundaries. We talked about how you actually rule your being. And what you have rulership over is your direction, your engagement. So now this process comes into me. Now, I'm already going to have this conversation. So it's just like having, if you're in AA and you have a sponsor. You're making your spouse that sponsor, or whomever it is that you're with. You make them that sponsor. It's like, look, this is what's going on. Hey, this is going on, and we're going to, because you're starting to create a new routine in your brain. So every time this trigger comes up and you do something, you got to realize there's a physical thing taking place in your neural pathways. So every time you do, that's why it's much more important what you do than what you say. Because when you do it, there's literally a pathway in your brain. So to reverse that force of energy that led you to doing things in that pleasure palace that is working against the outcomes that you want, the consequences that you want, the experiences that you want, I'm going to have to do things differently. So there's one pathway that your brain subconsciously is the fastest computer on this planet. So now I'm going to do that every time. Boom. And now I no longer connect it to porn or anything else. It becomes my natural flow. So now my signals that I want something becomes go to my spouse.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Okay, boom. These are happy tears. And fun. Shut up, you see.
I didn't know she was crying.
I looked over and I saw a tear coming from the right.
I feel like I'm in my path of fulfillment now because I wanted to. Remember, I told you I come here when I'm angry or upset, but I finally got a chance to be a part of. You might say this is our own small community,
For sure.
and I'm finally a part of positive.
For sure.
And I done used a lot here in East Mountain. And
Blessing.
I noticed you didn't call it the bottom.
it's not the
Yes.
bottom. Yeah. And it's I don't know. It makes me very emotional because I know I'm a very intimidated.
For sure.
Fire. Real fire.
Very.
Nah, I'm a Leo.
Oh.
Ooh. But but yes, I would think this would be part of my fulfillment. And
Sure did.
it's a lot I want to say, but I don't know how to put it all out.
We feel you.
Just let it flow. You know, we're gonna come back to it. You don't have to force it. We'll tap into it.
But what I want for me was to be around, have a new family.
For sure.
So I think I actually got what I wanted.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's the power of we-ology, right? That's those principles. Being able to have a space where you're able to get that sense of belonging, right? Because that potential, that which we're tapped into, there's so much that we are that we don't get the opportunity to be because we're constantly walking around with guards. Instead of expressing ourselves and then realizing that this person shouldn't be in my life, we do the opposite. I'm going to hold on to the beauty of me because other people might not deal with it accordingly. Where naturally the way that I handle myself starts to put people around me to that law of attraction, right? And so as I start to be my healing truth, I start to be my healing authentic self. I start to be an expression of my originality, that legacy, that inheritance that each human being has, but everybody got different abilities to tap into it. But the capacity is yours. So when I start looking at what do I want, I have to truly take in that question the same way we took in, what are you doing? Right? And we had to look at the different levels inside of doing. And that we're not just spurting out words. That every time we use a word, it's a link and connection to my being. So that's why when we're speaking in our actual language, every word keeps you in alignment. It's a tone, it's a vibration. Think about how you feel when you're angry and how you use your words and so on and so forth. That is part of your alignment and maintaining the momentum of what you vow to accomplish for yourself. How you plan to perform each day inside of being in order, having discipline, and having self-control or self-regulation to your purpose. And then you have to recognize how you're going to execute each day in fulfillment of that vow, that promise, making sure you have the right knowledge in order to do what's necessary to fulfill your purpose. You got to make sure that you're acting upon proper wisdom, decision making. You have to build the competency to be a decision maker for your fulfillment, for your purpose. And so a lot of times people don't talk about the competencies to being human, at functioning at a higher level, being a higher achiever for your life. Forget everybody else's stuff. So even that inner being that's screaming out for you to do things in your way, that's that potential asking to become your potency. You understand? Yeah. And so you're already on that path of I have to answer it, I have to answer it, I have to answer it. We hear people talking about having their calling, and it's within the same piece, but it's recognizing what's going to allow you to be well. What do I wish for myself? What am I lacking in order to get that wish? What must I do to identify my needs? And what does that start with? Identifying my needs. What does that begin with again?
No, what you said, wish?
No, identifying your needs. What does that begin with again?
Knowing where you want to go.
Knowing where you want to go.
Oh, yeah, I did say that, didn't I?
Right? Because we mentioned before that if you don't know where you're going, any road is going to take you there. And there's no self-mastery in a journeyless path. Because you got to know where you're going to be on a journey. Exactly. And you wind up getting stuck and stranded where you don't want to be. Because you done blew out all your energy. And now you're fed up. You're stressed out with life. Right? So you must know where you're going. And then you have to identify what standards are going to support me maintaining that momentum.
You surely can find yourself getting content for where you are at the moment.
Yeah.
And just cool with doing what you're doing, you know?
That's how the brain works though. Right? The brain attempts to make patterns. It attempts to lower your energy level. Right? You talk about, the path of least resistance. Right? That's how the brain works. But you have to make your journey, your quest, your purpose fulfillment, being a part of your mission, making sure that your vision is happening. You have to make that the path of least resistance. And that's going to take work. And so it's easy to become in a state of contentment in opposition to what it is you truly want, because it takes work, responsibility. The moment we talked about once before, the moment I say I want different, I want better,
You're acknowledging what
yep. Anything that ever happened to you from anybody else, caregivers or anyone else, are off the hook. You can feel about them the way you want to feel about them, but they're off the hook once you had recognition that something else can be going on here. And that was your initiation. And you did one or two things with that personal responsibility. Put up a blind eye, or I started making declarations. I'm going to be this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to move to another city. I'm going to do this. I'm going to change. Right? I started on a path. But that path where I go, I'm still going to be who I am. So if I haven't actually tapped into that inner being, right? That center being, which is that ability to transmute. Right? So being tapped into the source of it all gives you that ability to change on a dime. Change instantly. But our baggage says, well, I can't change because I got this, I got that, I got this bill, I got this, I got that. You start giving reasons, right? But even in your body, you have one cell. You got one cell. And that one cell can become everything that your body has right now. And that's why they get into stem cells and everything else. But on the mental side, it's the same thing. There's one reality, the source of it all. But then there's two paths. Sound, right, reasoning, and everything else. You understand? And so when you start to recognize that I want better, I can do better, now I have to base it upon the laws of existence that actually make that happen. So I can't say, well, so-and-so did it this way, so-and-so did it this way. They have different personality traits, different personal history, different competencies, right? So you can't actually compare to someone else. You create a competition with something that you have no control over the second you compare yourself. That's outside of you. And you only know less than 1% of that other person. Just think about how much of yourself you know. That other person knows 99.9% less of you. You understand? So as we start tracking, what do I want? I have to begin with where am I going? Because that's going to start recognizing where I lack. I need to know that space between where I am, where I want to go. And that becomes the real challenge. Because people think that introspection works, but we talked about this before. You already know all of the detours. The second you start to get into some deep conversation that you know you don't want to deal with, you're gonna surpass. And then you're not using sound right reasoning. You're gonna use some other stuff to try to get to the answer. So instead of 7 plus 7 equal 14, you're trying to make 7 plus 5 equal 14. Then you wonder why things going wrong. Like, things always go wrong for me. And then you start the pity party, right? No longer deity, right? So now recognizing that the sun is always shining. Even when there's clouds, there's storms, that sun's potential, its energy has not changed at all. Just what you're experiencing from the sun has changed. But that sun has not. And that sun is you. Understand? And so that's where we start to recognize those boundaries. Keep those boundaries. That's going to make sure that the mental you, the intellectual you is dealt with. The emotional you is dealt with. And then that purposeful performance you is being dealt with. So recognizing where I am, where I want to go, and what I need to do to get there. Because that's going to be the real journey. Right? And people got all kind of affirmations, but then their real life kick in. You get excited, and then life kicks in. You're not going to click your fingers all day. Eventually you get tired of that. Right? It's the same thing that happens when you got a good reading, you read it, but you're not acting upon it. The things that impact your life are your habits. Right? And we talked about that before as well. If you eat a healthy diet, right, you're good. You can eat the worst food on the planet one day out of 7 days, and your body just recognizes that as an aberration. It's going to blow it out. It's going to let it go, whatever. And it's not going to impact the actual functioning of your body. But you did the flip side. You eat terribly all the time, and that one day you eat well, you're going to get the terrible aspect of self. That goes mentally as well as physically. Right? So that mindful awareness is recognizing what you digest, what you take in, and having the tools to make it a part of you so that it what? You want to bring things into you and make it a part of you for what? For what?
Ever.
For effort for what?
Oh no, I said ever.
Oh, ever, right? Make it a part of you forever, right? But for what though? To serve what?
The higher person.
Yourself.
The higher person yourself.
Okay, so look at it this way. Your immune system.
Yeah.
Let's say a virus gets into my body. What does my body do?
Fights it.
It fights it. Why?
Because it's your, that's what.
It's foreign.
Yeah, that's what your body does.
Yeah, it's foreign. How many of us every day are taking in stuff that is actually foreign to our success, foreign to our purpose fulfillment? We bring it inside, we work with it, we don't burn it up like your body does to viruses. You start getting hot, getting fevers, right? It doesn't create a state of hell to get rid of whatever's coming in. What you do is you give it a chair, you make it comfortable, and then you complain about things not working out. Not realizing that you've housed everything that is working against you. It's all you. You are the solution, and you are the problem. So instead, what you're digesting, you make a part of you. You just randomly digesting everything. You're not being discerning. You're not being able to regulate what should be a part of you. Because there's a war on attention. So when you're scrolling on Facebook and Snapchat and all these other things, all of that is for your attention. And every moment you're in something that has nothing to do with your purpose fulfillment, guess where you are? In a state of what? Say that again? Lack. State of lack. What else?
Foreign territory.
Foreign territory. What else? Say that again. Treason. Talking about that. You're in a state of treason. So if you haven't made your declaration, you haven't rounded out what your purpose is, what your mission is, how you plan to use yourself, and what is relevant to that. You're not clear on how you're using yourself each day. You're not in control of how you're using yourself each day. Now you're just taking in random stuff and allowing it to move freely for too long. How many times you started scrolling, next thing you know, an hour later, you're like, oh man, I should be doing something else. You done got
Caught up.
into the matrix, as you say, right? And so that whole moment, you were an hour, 2 hours outside of your purpose. Now, if you plan to do that, write that into your purpose. I'm going to sit down here and randomly, this is my fulfillment. This is my vow. I promise to myself that I'm going to spend time doing nothing for my betterment 3 hours a day. You willing to say that to yourself? Yeah, that's how we become content in opposition to what it is we truly want. Because we're not having those kind of conversations. When there's a live being out in front of you, and this is where we-ology comes in, right? When you have a live person outside of you who's not part of your personal challenge, you can't tell those stories. Like, hey, you know what? You haven't been going to work lately. You understand? So to yourself, you can justify all kinds of things. But when you put yourself inside of a community and you're living of, for, and by each other, you've also took a vow to let somebody step to you. Right? That's caring. And that's one of the things that's missing, is that there's no longer a state of caring. And that's what happens in a village. People who leave to go elsewhere are people who want to do things that they know aren't in their own best interest. I must hide. Right? I have to be over here amongst other people who don't care until things happen. Right? Now I want to come back to the community. Your brain is also designed that way. You ever seen people of African descent who don't do anything with people of African descent, and they wind up going to court, they wind up in a situation, and now all of a sudden they run to who? People of African descent. Your brain recognizes what is a similar piece to you, right? Because that's how we survived as in tribes, in villages for millions of years. So just because we've been living in this environment that we're in for the last 1,000, last 500, that has no imprint on your DNA right now, right? So we have to go right back to those laws of the source. So the brain is going to bring you to those things when you're in a state of lack. And if my state of lack is I got to go get porn, I got to go eat foods, we got comfort food, we give them all kind of cute names. Things that you don't want, give them titles that you don't want to have. You know, it's going to be my cheat day. Right? This is the day I want to step outside of the purpose that I said I was doing this for that day. Then it starts to not be as, right? Or you create a routine that allows for your eating to be as such, so that you're not making it something other. So you have to make it make sense, because you can't lie to your subconscious.
So when we talk about what can take us off our track, so it kind of leads me to think about how we have a voice within us even when we don't move our lips.
Mm-hmm.
And we can hear it from the inside,
Mm-hmm.
and it's telling us, but it's us, but
Your higher self.
I don't know that it's that, because I'm going to
Exactly.
lead to self-sabotaging.
Exactly.
Because sometimes you hear this voice that clearly is speaking against the direction that you know you're going into.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that voice come from, and how do we mitigate that?
Okay. So from the moment conception took place, and then forget the exact week, you start to get hearing, right? You are starting to be on that path. You start to hear the voices of your caregivers. That's how babies are also able to know the voices of their parents. Their brain is also starting to develop whatever language is being spoken, right? They're starting to take in those tones, those sounds, those vibrations, right? So be careful what you surround when you're pregnant. So those vibrations start to come in. Your brain and all this stuff is developing with that sound, right? And starting to get meaning and so on and so forth. So you start to have thoughts are based off of everything you've ever heard, ever seen, ever contemplated, ever sat back and pondered and was like, yo, you gave it a judgment. All of those things are where those thoughts and voices start to arise from. But now, at the center of that is recognizing the voices that are foreign and the voices that are for you. Because you got to realize that we talked about history, we are every person that ever existed in our bloodline. We are at the end point of that right now. Every person in your bloodline that ever existed is right now with you. And they leave impressions in your DNA. All of these pieces are still a part of you. And not all of them are going to be healthy for you. So once again, set my destination, once I provide recognition and declaration of how I'm going to use this being, I'm going to become a steward of this temple. Right? I'm going to make sure that the personal support I develop, I'm going to make sure that the mission that I establish and the purpose I'm going to fulfill is in alignment with this being. Now, every voice that is in opposition of that can't be for me. It could be from a movie you've seen. So we start to develop ideas from everything we've seen. So you've watched something like, oh, I'll never let that happen to me, man. I wonder how it would be if that's where you start the wrong path. Mm-hmm. The things that you don't want to happen, I wonder how it would be for me if I didn't have this, if I didn't have that. You understand? So
I wanted.
That self-sabotage is going to make sure that what you don't want is going to happen. That's what self-sabotage does. That's that self-defeating principles. Those are the anti-human elements of you. Because most of the time it starts to lead you somewhere, and that other voice comes in, non-judgmental, you've been smoking, like it'll be that voice that says, you probably should stop smoking. And then right away that justification comes in, well, man, this is what I need, I've been down, I don't feel good, cigarettes make me, you start to justify that voice of reason. Because that voice isn't going to act. It's just at the root of you. And it's not going to go anywhere. No matter what this person has done. Right? I don't care if this person is going on killing sprees and everything else. The face that you learn to put forth doesn't mean that inner being isn't in turmoil. Because we're learning entities. If I learn that I have to present a certain mask in order to be inside of the community that I'm in, that's what I'm going to do. Right? So growing up in Chicago, it was very easy to recognize that certain behaviors are going to be acceptable. Right? And so you have to recognize what's acceptable for where you're going. So those voices that come in, you have to be able to regulate them based on your discipline, your order, and your self-control to where you're going, to where you are. Right?
But you can't ignore.
See, now there's a different piece in terms of, it wouldn't be ignoring, it'd be acknowledging what I want. Right? And so they're being avoided, but not by me going around you in avoidance, but that where I need to go is there. And so without thinking about you, I'm avoiding you. Right? So once something is triggered, as we mentioned before, I just have to maintain my behavior. Because I've been exposed to all of these things on a daily basis. Right? And so even with children that grew up in the same house, don't have the same experiences. One might take the parent as overbearing and working against me, and the other child is saying, yo, that parent has made me the person I needed to be, put me in the situation to be able to address things in life, and had the same stuff. But it's going to be how that person brings them in, because even though you're in the same family, you're going to have a different mixture of that DNA that's inside of you as well. Right? And so you're still your own person. You are your unique spectrum of the source of existence. Right? You have all the qualities of the source of existence and where you are. And that's where magic comes in, is what you take from that source part of you, your mind, that part of you that isn't alive. It doesn't die. And how you bring that into this physical realm, how you make that thought reality, is the difference. Because what's between those things is where you place your confidence. It's where you place your hope. It's where you place your active hope. It's where you place how you engage your values. Right? And so it goes back to, what do you rule? Remember we discussed that. What do you rule? What aspect? Okay. Okay.
Your declaration.
Your declaration is one of them. What you declare is what you rule. What else?
Your response in every situation.
Your response is what you rule. What else? Say it. See, have the confidence to be wrong. That's what success comes in, having the confidence to be wrong. Because if you never say it, guess what also doesn't happen?
Get the right answer.
Exactly. You don't get corrected.
Right.
Right? So I want to be as wrong as I can be at all times. Because now if I'm in front of someone who's going to provide me with what I need, then I'm going to speak out. Because if I reduce my wrong on my path, what is left? Progress. Right. But when I don't have the confidence to be wrong, yeah, it requires courage. That's the biggest courage. Yeah, but it's inside of your conscience. Self-doubt is what's learned. That's learned. It's not what naturally happens. Because if it was natural, then there would be doubt in the universe outside of your ability to think it. There's no doubt in the universe. Sunlight is going to take about 4 minutes to come from the sun, 93 million miles from the sun to the earth. It takes about 4 minutes. That's going to happen regardless. Because what impacts the light waves is nothing else that's out there. Right? And so, fact. Doubt is what happens in this realm, in what you're sharing in the spectrum of the all. So that goes right back to direction. What do you rule? Direction. Where I move, how I move. Now, whatever I run into doesn't matter, because it's going to go back to I rule my response. You see? So self-rulership. So when I'm starting to get voices that are in opposition to my purpose, to my mission, to my vision, I rule my direction. I rule my engagement. I rule my interaction. I rule my response. I truly rule my decisions. But all of that is going to take us right back to, what do you want? And how am I going to activate getting what I want? How am I going to activate getting what I want?
Put it into a plan,
Okay.
you know, like you said, acknowledging it first, and then,
Yes.
and then it goes on to, you know, actually doing it,
Mhm.
doing to get to where you want to go.
Okay. Remember us talking about the 4 keys to thriving? And that first key is investing. It begins with you willing and open to invest in what it is that you want. What you dare to command. Right? You have to be willing to invest. You have to have that willingness and that openness to experience, because there's going to be a challenge. Because you've already become comfortable in the way that you are. Right? How do I know that? Because that's what you are. You've done what was necessary to live inside of that space, in that state. And as we discussed, you are perfectly designed to get the results that you get. So everything that happens in your life right now is by your design. What you've accepted, what you didn't accept, what you acted upon, what you didn't act upon, what you do, what you don't do, has led you to where you are to being in a state of lack. Because if you want something, that means something's missing. And if it's other than food, water, and shelter, it's personal pieces. Because those things are part of your design that you have to have unless you're looking to die. You understand? So now, investing, that next piece is strategic living. Now what is that? What is strategic living? What is strategic living?
Living on purpose with a plan.
Okay. Okay. What else? What else does that mean? Living with purpose and a plan. Strategic living. What does that mean?
Strategic.
What does that mean for you to act upon it? What does that mean for you to act upon it?
Practice you preach.
Practice what you preach? I say don't preach. Now what?
It ain't just being.
Okay, strategic living. How so?
You're being in accordance to what your universe is permitting you to follow in your existence. So say if I'm not in this society, but I'm on an island where I'm cut off from all y'all. We don't have clothes, there's no cotton. Like, I wear leaves around my waist, and you know, we really naked most of the time, but we hunt and we use bows and arrows and tree branches in order to like catch our fish. And we know what fire is because we've been introduced to that through our own means of evolution. But our strategic living is different because every day we're surviving, we're hunting, and we thrive in that way, and like that's meaningful to us. And
Right.
so if they were to come from Georgia and they tell us, hey, these are clothes, here's an iPhone, and this is TV, that's not really in accordance with our strategic living. So we may rebuke that and say no.
Right. Okay, so in essence, strategic living is personalized because each person has their own what?
Line. Goal.
Journey,
Train of thought.
Obstacles.
Oh, yeah.
life experience.
Put it this way. The reason why you're not where you want to be is because of your personal what?
Oh, well, yeah.
Personalized
Your personal obstacles.
Oh,
You understand? Because there's you, there's what you want, and then what's the space in between? Why are you not there? It becomes that reality that a lot of us don't like to ask. Why are you not there?
Yeah.
So strategic living is you have to build a lifestyle that addresses your stuff, that's going to support what you are investing in, right? So to have the audacity to declare your truth, your authenticity, and your originality is going to identify, once you make that declaration, how your strategy has to be designed, right? Because it's going to be your journey, as you mentioned, that you're going to have to go through. But it's all boils down to how you address your challenges. Like everyone here, for the most part, can walk from here to the door. That's success. That's easy.
That's a blessing.
But now, turn the lights out. You throw everything around. Now you start thinking strategically on how to get to the door. Now I'm feeling, I'll do this way. Everybody starts to revert to a process. You understand? And so now if I leave you in here by yourself for a while and you had to touch the door every morning, guess what you're going to wind up doing? What are you going to do?
Forming a strategy.
You're going to form a strategy. You're going to form a routine. I guarantee you're going to take the same path. Even if you find two different paths, you're going to take that same path and you're going to start getting there quicker and quicker until you reach your speed of doing it effectively. Each person has to go through that in their lives. But we don't develop a strategy. We keep living randomly. You know, we get taught that being spontaneous is key, right? And that's fine. But I'm going to be spontaneous inside of my path. Anything outside of your path is what again? Foreign. And what else? Treason. Why are you stepping off your path? Now you might need to modify it if you're going to start incorporating other things. So if you didn't change your strategy, you're wondering why you start finding yourself in a cycle of failure. You keep adding things, but your strategy didn't change. And then problems start. So now that third piece, first you got investing, then you have to have strategic living, but whatever you plan to fulfill or achieve, you will achieve. So if you plan to not speak out, you're going to achieve holding in your thoughts. Right? And that's what's going to happen. Like I said, your body is unconditional love. However you teach it to be used, it's going to give it to you instantly. Right? So I have to put together a plan of what it is that I actually plan to achieve and fulfill. I have to put all of that together. And then that last piece is going to be part of your impactful self-education, is that I have to fight for and defend my purpose at all costs. And fighting for it isn't about somebody external. It's like your immune system. Your immune system doesn't leave the body to protect you. If something engages it, it's activated. So fighting for your purpose has to do with that center being, getting in alignment with your values, getting in alignment with your conscience, right? And identifying those boundaries that's going to allow you to fulfill your being. And with that, open up for any questions, thoughts, comments, concerns.
Can I see this book now?
Yeah, I'm gonna get it to you as soon as we finish. I guarantee you get the book. No doubt. Any questions? We clear? We good?
What is one of the biggest vows that may be important in forming a wishful declaration?
What will be a vow?
Yeah.
Just making that declaration. Like, starts with, right? I dare to get what I command. I dare to get what I want. I dare to get what I know I deserve, right? So even starting down that thought process, I'm making a vow to hit my end game, which is to be able to put that into practice.
Yeah.
Right? So my vow is to my higher achieving self. Right? So as I start to look at, I dare to get what I command. Well, commanding, dealing with authority. What am I commanding? I start looking at those processes. And then that starts to lead me into that. I have the audacity to declare, right? My truth, my authenticity, my originality. Well, I got to recognize what that truth is. Remember, that's why we put the word healing in front of truth. Because if I'm working from my low self-esteem and I deal with people as if I don't matter, and that's how I deal with, that's my truth, right? It's my truth and how I deal with myself. However, my healing truth wouldn't be that. My healing truth is that I'm going to have to identify the person that I am, that I want to be, and I'm going to have to nurture, feed, and take care of that. And then things start to change because I start to change the way I engage myself. Talk about what do I rule, my direction. So I'm going to start to rule the way that I direct my mind, my thoughts, and the way I interact and engage. So that vow begins there, right? Daring, right? That's the divinity or that divinity, that development, that scope and meaningfulness of you to act in a state of well-being, that divinity, that development. And then you have to make sure that you're aiming, right? You have to aim to impress. And impress is dealing with you. It's what you are imprinting on you. You have to look at, right? And you have to make sure that you're regulating all that you do. Keeping it all in order, right? Recognizing what you allow to influence what you do. And recognize that there's no excuses. If you're not doing it, you're not doing it. How do I get to it? You understand? And so someone can give you the support. Don't let the ego, well, if I don't know it, nobody knows it. Or no, don't let your ego get in the way, right? Your ego is going to be in support of your desires. So if you're desiring not to be seen as if you don't know something, that's the direction, that's the way you're going to use your emotions, and that's how you're going to perform. And it's going to be in opposition to what you really want. And that impacts a lot of our relationships. I don't want to be vulnerable because I don't want this person to get over on me. I don't want this person to think that I can't. But do you need that? Yes. But are you in a state of lack? Yes. So you're not even giving this person who you're vowing to live with forever the opportunity to be support. So I got to go all the way back to the beginning and start over. That I'm not using a strategic plan to get what I truly want, to be healed and healing. I'm in a state of avoidance and then mad that I'm in that state. Mad that this person not giving me what I need in our relationship, although I never gave that person that opportunity. And how dare they don't know it. Right? What else? Any other questions? Did I answer that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nah, for sure. Actually, that sparked a new question. You mentioned something that like set off like a dope light bulb, because you said aim to impress yourself,
right.
And you mentioned regulating, and throughout that you said regulating your ego in order to put it into a place where it wants you to attain your wishes.
Yes.
So like forming a positive relationship with that ego, because if your ego is operating in a space of lack, then it'll say, okay, well, I gotta keep these people away from here. Okay, I gotta, absorb and like, observe and watch out for this threat right here. But if you move your ego into a space where I can do anything, or I dare to get what I command, or I rule my direction and I operate from my healing truth, then that's the space that your ego will take heed of and really form itself into becoming naturally.
Yes, become part of your immunity, your mental immunity.
I like that mental immunity. That's good. Yeah. Hope.
Yeah.
That's good.
Start talking about our self-defense, right? And that's not being defensive, right? If you're thinking about your threats, it's a problem, right? Where should your mind be? Where should your mind be?
Defend.
Where you're going, where you're at in terms of your mission, your vision, your purpose fulfillment, right? But when I'm living inside of what I don't want, talked about this before, whenever you nurture, you will grow, right? And so looking at that regulation, I realized that regulation, different from control, is that regulation only kicks in when you're being challenged. If I say that I'm going to do XYZ every day, right, for my betterment, and now something comes in that attracts my attention, and I start to step away from my purpose, that's when regulation kicks in and says, hey, put your attention on your path. Put your attention on your values. Put your attention on your principles. Put your attention, and now you're regulated to what's for you. And we learn that by way of our bodies. Everything that you eat doesn't go to every cell in your body. Your cells have regulation. So all of this fluid and stuff and nutrients is floating by, but it's only regulated to certain ones, right? And so when that trigger comes through, it responds. It just waits for that to happen. But it's still doing everything it does inside the cell. You got one aspect of you that's taking care of that. And so we are focal beings. So the way that people get dealt with in order for them to get off their path is based off of where you place your focus. You see? So if I get you to place your focus on how much money you can make, now I also can run you by all of the marketing schemes that will get you to make money. That you would leave your path because this might get me, because you don't understand what you need money for. You're just chasing the money. And the reality of money is to spend. You understand? And on your dollar and on your money says legal tender for what? Legal tender for what? Anybody know what that says on your money?
Sales.
Huh?
Legal tender for sales?
Nope.
Exchange?
Nope. Debt.
Debt.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's legal tender for debt. Do you refer to your success as debt? Right? It's for owing something. It's to cover things. But people are looking for money as a state of fulfillment. But nobody goes out and make money to put it in a closet, just stack it, making money, not buying nothing. They just, no, there's something that you want to do with it. So you get back into, what do you want? You start to get back at what your lack is and get into that, then you realize that you might need less money than you're actually attempting to pursue.
Right.
But most people don't know their number. They don't know how much money they need in reality per month in order to be the person that they want to be. So they just randomly, once again, like the lights are out, and now what happens is we're going to change the room around every day. And that's how people are when they're living randomly. So you don't get a chance to get a strategy. Does that make sense? But we leave everything the same, it's in the dark, it might take you 3 months to find a path to the door. But every day you were working toward what?
The door.
Yeah. You're recognizing obstacles. You're learning how to move around them. You recognize that I shouldn't even go in this direction. Because you know where you're going. That you're able to get mastery. But when I'm living randomly, if this situation changed all the time, I can't get to mastery. So our memory allows us to get to mastery. But if I encode, if I put stuff into my memory based upon my fear, based upon the things that I don't want, that's what my brain is going to use. But if I start to rewire the way I use my memory, now it's in fulfillment of my purpose, my mission. I'm not going to hold my thoughts back when I need a response. I need to know if what I'm doing is incorrect. Because I'm working on self-mastery. So we have memory for that. Because when you're out in your original tribes, I had to remember where the food was. I had to remember the language. Memory is everything. If you had to learn a word every moment, it wouldn't make sense because you have no memory. You wouldn't be able to talk. You wouldn't know where the food is. I wouldn't know who you are. There wouldn't be any relationships. It's your memory. What do you want? You start looking at what you lack, and it's going to all come back from what you've been part of your memory, the way that you use your memory, the way that you build messages from your memory. All of that stuff is going to build that design that you're perfectly made for right now in your life. So if you want different, it's also going right back to that memory. What you do. Properly aiming that confidence. Because right now, like I said, everyone has confidence. You're confident to work against yourself. You're confident to work from low self-esteem. You're confident, you understand? All of those things that's in opposition to where you're going. You have to properly aim your confidence in your journey. You see? All right. Good.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so what's your why? Like, what makes you happy about these discussions each Thursday?
Because it's part of my purpose fulfillment.
Okay.
Right.
Which is,
Right? In order to empower human beings to function at their higher self. Right? And to build community in reference to it. Right?
Man, I'm all for it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure indeed.
Thank you for asking, Billy. Thank you for,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you for, yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.